sound levels.
Okay. So I was just kind of burnt out from working in residential.
Hey, yo, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, Manny, and I'm coming to you live from the Manny J Media headquarters here in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I'm here with two good friends, John and Jess of the Gavin Foundation. Whew, that was a mouthful. Welcome to the show, guys. Let's start here with my immediate right, John. Welcome back.
Thanks,
it's so
bro.
good to have you, my man. Oh, yeah, let's do that way.
I already know.
Yeah. It's all love. It's all appreciation. I love what you do out here in the community. I love that you are a face for rehabilitation, for recovery, but even more than all that, you're out here for community. You're out here helping your other brothers and sisters who have found themselves in paths that we may never have even imagined, getting back into what life is truly all about and finding ourselves and being productive, contributing members of community, not society. I left that word out for a reason. I don't always really agree with society. I think society is very judgy. But I do feel when you find your village and you find your community, that you do want to contribute to that and uplift and build that up. So with that being said, I do want to have you guys talk a little bit about yourselves before we go into the Gavin Foundation. So if you don't mind, because we did talk to you before, I am going to bring it back to you because there may be people here who have not seen our interview, which, what are you guys doing? All you got to do is go to Manny J Media on Facebook, scroll down our videos, and look for the John Cormier video. It's really good. Get to know a lot about your background, which we'll get into in just a second. But I'd love to introduce Jess.
Hi.
Tell me who you are. What's your name? Where are you from?
Jessica Manning. I'm originally from Boston, West Roxbury, Massachusetts.
Welcome to Worcester.
Thank you. I've been in Central Mass now for 9 years, almost 10 years. Recovery brought me here. I battled with substance abuse since my teens, and It took me a really long time, jails, institutions, almost death, like the normal thing that happens to most substance abusers. And then at one point I found myself pregnant, and I was in recovery, but it was like pretty unstable. So I chose to go into a women's residential treatment program. And from there, I ended up in community supportive housing in Webster. And that's where my recovery journey really began. I never really imagined I'd be able to have lasting recovery because I was a chronic relapser.
Yeah.
I just never really imagined I could have any kind of life. I was on Social Security for a really long time, like due to, the trauma that we experience while using. And I just didn't really have any hope for my future. And I just kind of existed. I was on methadone for a really long time, just kind of going through the motions. And then eventually, I realized that there was more to life. I started to eat better, started to take better care of my health, became a better mother to my daughters, a better daughter to my parents.
Yeah.
And then one day I decided that I was ready to go back to work. And working in recovery was kind of really the only option. It's what I know. So I applied for, an entry-level position at Jana's place in Worcester. I got the job. I was shocked that I got it.
No, what is Jana's place?
It's a residential treatment program for women that were commercially exploited sex workers. And it's a co-occurring enhanced program, which means they have mental health, trauma, complex PTSD. And it's survivor led. So it means that pretty much everyone that works there also survived the same horrors of addiction.
It's terrible, but I would say it's extremely important in that there's that relatability factor.
Right.
Not only could I, as the person who is utilizing the services, relate to the person who is providing those services and feel more comfortable with them, right? Because this is someone who's gone through what I went through. They can understand, right? Surely.
And that was a huge
but
part of
also,
my story.
as the person who is providing the services, it puts you in a position to be a lot more empathetic, patient, maybe at least have a sense of non-judgment in the room between the two parties. So, I think peer support and peer-led organizations are so vitally important. So thank you for doing that. I do want to bring it back just a little bit into, we kind of went a little quickly between when you found yourself in a position of, consistent relapsing and abuse and addiction, to becoming a recovery coach.
Right.
Where was that pivotal moment? What did that look like when you decided to say, you know what, I'm going to take control of my life and I can't do this anymore? And be completely honest as you're comfortable being, because I know it's not the easiest conversation to have, but I think it's so important for our community to know, listen, there's been times in my own addiction where I've relapsed and I sat there by myself through that relapsing, wondering what the hell did I do to myself? What the hell went wrong? And I could remember where that snap inside of me said, Manny, get it together and go do something with yourself. What did that look like for you?
So I think it was when I spoke about the program I went to. It was supportive housing after I was in residential treatment. It was within the first few years of my recovery, and I had counselors there, and they would always be like, you'd be great working in recovery. You should think about it. And initially I was like, what? Other drug addicts, they drive me crazy. I really want nothing to do with it. I'm trying to move away from that. I really wanted no part of it. But the seed was kind of planted. And I think it's just in my nature, even in my active addiction, I would try to help people. It's just who I am. I like to see others succeed. And
I would imagine with what you went through, what it's like to be in those shoes.
Right.
That even though, okay, sure, maybe doing the drug, you get that high and you feel good momentarily, it's hell in between those highs.
Especially for a woman, we go through different things than a man has to go through a lot of times. I'm not saying all men don't have to do a lot of the things that women do, but it's living hell.
Yeah.
So I think I just wanted to help people, get to where I was, and that's a big thing that I say to people. I'm like, if I can do this, Anyone can.
Yeah. Where was that moment, if you don't mind me asking? And again, you could just say, let's move on. I don't want to talk about it in case you did get it and I'm just missing that.
Mm-hmm.
Where was it when you said, I can't do this anymore? What was that moment when you decided? Because, I mean, you just don't go from using to clean overnight and then next thing you know,
it was a slow progress.
Yeah.
I moved away from Boston where most of my drug use occurred. And the more time I was away and not using substances, my mind began to clear more and I could see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. I have an older daughter who I lost. My parents have her, but I lost custody of her.
But that's a lot.
Yeah. And then I found myself pregnant again. And that was the worst thing I had ever gone through, you know. Yeah. And I just knew that I didn't want to repeat the same thing.
Right.
With my younger child. So it was like a perfect storm of events. You know, I watched a lot of my friends pass away from the disease of addiction.
Yeah.
You know, I had horrible things happen to me. I did horrible things to my family. And it was just kind of like enough is enough type thing.
Right.
And the more time I had away from using, like I started to appreciate, you know, my health and my body. And I started to see things for the positive. And I made like slow changes. I stopped eating, you know, like a shitty diet. Like,
yeah.
And the cleaner I ate, like the cleaner I felt, exercise. I worked on my mental health.
Yeah. And one thing I don't think a lot of people understand from addiction, I mean, I know it's all different for everybody.
Yeah.
But like I said, it feels good when you get high, right? Yeah. Like that's the reason why a lot of people get high, because the immediate, like, I'm getting high, I feel good,
right.
Great time. But then you just feel like crap the rest of the time. Right. You don't feel good. You're beating yourself up. Right. Physically, muscles are hurt, nerves are shot. So I like that you brought up, you know, when you started eating cleaner, you started paying more attention to your personal health.
Right.
You actually started feeling better, right? You feel better the times in between the highs, you feel better. And like, that's kind of like a new high to chase, actually.
Right. Know? And like, you know, I think the goal of addiction is to kill yourself. Like there's something inside you that you
I've never heard that.
And you're doing it slowly.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think
there's something inside you that you hate.
That you just hate about yourself, whether it be trauma from when you were a child, mental health concerns.
Yeah,
and that's the end goal is to kill yourself.
Right.
It's, you know, it's slow and painful, and you know, can take decades. But eventually, if you don't stop using, that's what's going to happen.
Wow, that's so profound. What did she say?
Well, there's a part of it too that, like, so we're human and we can let our ideas die.
Yeah.
So the addict in us wants us to not be here anymore. But if we can change the person that carries the addict within us, then we can just let the addict within us die, which is kind of like a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And so if we have a new way of thinking, we could step into a new way of life, and then you separate yourself from the addict, and then you let that character, that persona go.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Jess, but it sounds like we have a lot in common. I mean, we've chopped it up before, but you talked about like gaining some independence. And for me, like that was the very first thing that I realized I never had, was like not just independence from drugs or alcohol, but like to be able to take care of myself, to have my own place, to pay my own bills. Like that taste of independence is what fortified my recovery and made it so like there was nothing that was going to get in the way of that. And when I started to, you know, when you're sober, you make missteps too. Things go wrong. You move on from different jobs or relationships, and that can be tough to navigate. But at the end of the day, I had my independence, and I wasn't trying to give that up. So it's like we just trudged forward. And I remember the idea of like working with people in recovery. I was like, yeah, right. I'll never do that.
Right.
Like actually, I did not like the idea of recovery coaches.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild to think about, because, you know, you had just said that part of the reason for addiction is you're killing yourself, right? We're killing the part of you that you don't like. So to work with people who are addicted, essentially, is working with people you don't like. or at least that they don't like,
or in parts of yourself that you don't like.
Right.
It's a reflection.
And how hard is it to like not be so compelled to relapse? Because if I'm assuming if you're an addiction coach, I don't know because I'm far removed from this, that you are dealing with people who are still struggling with staying sober, meaning they're still using. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I think it just seals the deal even more. It just reminds me how if I were to use, that's how I would end up. And at this point, it makes me sick. It really does. Before it was something like I couldn't imagine going without.
Yeah.
But now it's like, it's the exact polar opposite of how I live today.
I'm glad you brought that up because, I have, there's a personal situation that I'm very privy to. And I try to, from what I've seen as someone who, granted I had my own addiction issues, which are a long time ago, I wouldn't even consider them to be, I guess you can't judge who's worse than the other, but I feel like my addictions were they were easy for me to overcome. And I can't sit here and judge anybody else who's struggling to overcome those addictions. And I don't even think I could begin to understand, because I was one of the lucky, I would consider one of the lucky people who I would say it was easy for me to move on from that. But I know a lot of people, one person in particular, who doesn't want to move on, who is okay with their addiction, who wants to just, why can't you just live and let me live? Mind your business. Let me go on.
Isn't that interesting?
And they don't see that their addiction is harmful, not only to the people around them, but to mainly themselves. Like they're killing all these relationships and things like that. What would you say to someone who doesn't feel like they have a problem, even if the rest of the world is trying to tell them you have a problem?
I try to lay out the tools to let them come to their own conclusion. Really, honestly, there was so many signs that told me that I had issues to address. And a big part of me didn't want to address those issues because I wasn't ready. And I kind of accepted that reality. This is just who I am. This is how I'm going to live. This is probably how I'm going to die. And ironically, there was some kind of surrender in that. And so like when I work with people who are active, there's no judgment. I get it because I've been there, but I don't try to say, you're an addict, you need help or anything like that. It's more like, have you considered this option, or have you tried this resource? Or for me, I went to this type of meeting and it was helpful, or I have heard that this type of, it's like allowing them to come to their own conclusion, to ask like questions that help them think about the situation that they're in and then try to get out of it. But when people are using around me, we just had to learn how to develop a neutral attitude towards drugs and alcohol. It's like at some point, it's okay what you do. It's none of my business. What I have to focus on is what I can't do. And I know that I can't drink, I can't drug, I can't smoke pot, I can't do it. There are people who can get their life back together doing some of those things. More power to you. For me, I can't. And so I had to develop a neutral attitude toward that. And I think that in conjunction with independence and like learning how to pay bills and grow up and get responsible, like all those things fortified my recovery. And at this point today, it's just like there's nothing today that's going to take me back out.
I love that. And I love that confidence in who you are now, and the direction you want to go. And the only one who's going to push you off that path is you. And you wanted to say?
I would say, to a person that really doesn't want to stop or doesn't think that they have a problem, like what would they be doing if they didn't have the drugs in their life? Like there would be something that they would be missing, whether it be a function at their child's school because they had to go cop drugs, or they don't have as much money in their bank account. I would try to think of it from like a really practical way. That's how I would probably approach someone that didn't really want to stop or think that they had a real problem. Like the drugs now were so different. It would be really difficult not to have your life in shambles if you were using the drugs that are on the street right now. They're not the same drugs that were around 10 or 15 years ago. They're complete poison. I have friends that are in nursing homes right now. They're in their early 40s.
Whoa.
Yeah, people that someone I grew up with
those
from a
bad
pressed pill,
toxins.
from a pressed pill.
Wow.
Yeah, and he can't
Real.
function. He needs to be fed, changed.
More and more common.
Yeah, and I hear that
Wow.
more and more.
Mhm.
People have holes all over their body.
That's
I destroyed,
wild.
like I have, like, it's just vicious. It's going to kill you in the end.
Right.
It
Wow.
really
And
is.
so one thing that I've learned through talking with people, our interview before, and other people that I've talked to with organizations such as Everyday Miracles, I found that it's better to inspire people than it is to, break them down or shame them
Right.
into sobriety.
Mhm.
Having a purpose is a great place to
Right.
start. Having something to do with your time
Mhm.
other than, seeking or even feeling bad, for yourself, for being in the situations you're in.
Mhm.
How do you, what do you guys think about that? What is the method that you find as peer coaches? I'm sorry, that's not the right word.
No,
Recovery coach.
Recovery coach,
Same,
thank
same
you.
same
thing.
thing.
To be most successful in helping your peers find their way onto the path of sobriety?
I always try to discourage a lot of people, especially in residential treatment, will say that I'm just going to go on Social Security, and not use drugs. The way that I kind of got long-term recovery was by being busy and, filling my life with fulfilling things, not just, kind of having nothing to do. Like, that's a recipe for disaster for anyone that's using.
Right.
So I always ask, like, what did you want to be when you were a little girl or a little boy before you started using drugs? Because most people have no idea.
Yeah.
A lot of people have been using drugs since they were an early teen
Right.
and have never really, had a profession or had anything.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know.
Yeah.
So I try to,
And it's funny that you bring that up because when we were kids, every kid I've ever known, even in school, we all wanted to be something, even if it was something that there was practically no way that we can actually achieve. Like we think of big things. I want to be president, the astronaut.
Right.
The big things, not just a regular job. We need to get back to that. That pattern of thinking, because even if you don't become, say, a president or an astronaut, you become something great nonetheless. And speaking of great, we got a lot of great people out there who support us, who we love so much and we appreciate. And we're going to take a couple moments just to have you see who they are. So we're going to take that away right now. Yeah, we're good. All right. And welcome back to InnerViews. I'm here with my good friends, John and Jess. And before we left, we were talking a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are, and a little bit about inspiration or inspiring others towards the path of recovery. And I really want to talk about who you guys are here representing today. Before we get into that, John, if you could just do me a quick favor, give me a little bit of rundown about who you are and how you got involved on this path with the Gavin Foundation.
So my name is John Wayne Cormier Jr. We just celebrated a little over 6 years of sobriety.
Congratulations.
Thank you. January 11th, 2019 is my sober date. How I got here, there's a series of very unfortunate events. A lot of bad decision making got me to where I'm at. And at some point, I had to learn how to adopt other people's way of thinking. As I mentioned in the beginning, like in active addiction, we sort of develop this persona this character that's not exactly who we are. Like, and I was so deeply embedded in the idea of being John Wayne, like, and you know, the street character, the addict, the person who would lie and steal and manipulate. I had to do those things in order to get what I wanted, because I was on a mission to concretely seal that identity and live out that role. And so when I got sober, thanks to Sheriff Lou and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for providing me 3 hots and a cot, I managed to get sober. And in that sobriety, when I got out, I had to learn how to reformulate the new character that is John in recovery. And in order to do that, I had to let go of my old way of thinking, which was not easy. It's like I've built neuro pathways and connections in my brain that were defaulted to like reactive attitudes and angry reactions, and those emotions, the inability to regulate those emotions would plunge me back into the desire to use and drink and to kind of get rid of all the chaos. And okay, so how did I get to the Gavin Foundation? It's like, well, we make mistakes. We take on opportunities, and we learn how to, I don't know, grow up, for lack of a better way of saying it. And I moved on from a vocation I loved very deeply. And I found myself in this sort of dark space for a couple of months, looking at square one. Like, what am I going to do?
Let me stop you there real quick. Just because I know a little bit about the story, I think it's important that we say you came out of jail in a very successful program with Sheriff Lou. Successful for you, I mean. How successful was in the community is not what I'm trying to refer to, but successful for you. And then you found yourself in a dark place again after that, after all the success, after all this greatness that you were experiencing. You found yourself at a point
after 5 years, right,
that could have easily triggered a relapse. Can you just briefly get me through that, how that felt for you? And one of the things that I think is really dope is how you found the Gavin Foundation.
It's interesting because I had to, I had to process a lot of negative self-talk, right? Because I internalized the misstep or the growth, because it depends on which way you look at it, right? But I moved on, and I had to make a new decision about where I'm going to go. And I had to go back to square one. And the only way I was able to do that was by, first of all, thank God I already had a network of sober people that I could call and talk to that helped me through this, and my friends and family and people were there.
Support system.
The network is, so we know at this point that connection is like the antidote to, like, human connection is the antidote to addiction and alcoholism. Like, we know that. So I was able to stay connected in a sense, but that only gets you so far. And then I had to actually apply myself. So getting online. So I had to drag myself to my computer, open up Indeed, start searching jobs. And when I'm doing that.
And this is all why you felt like crap.
Yeah.
You weren't feeling your best.
People in my family were passing away. There was a lot of other alternative issues that were taking place at the same time. And so I'm back at square one. I'm just going through Indeed, and I'm looking at these job opportunities, and you know, I have a bad record. I have a terrible past. I don't feel qualified for most of these positions. And then I remembered I'm just filling out applications.
Yeah.
Like, apply. If they give you the job, great. If they don't, at least you gave it a shot. And so I started to just make small steps. First, it was make an Indeed page. That was day one. Day two, make an Indeed page, look at some applications, look at some places hiring, note that. Day three, go back to the places that are hiring, fill out the application. Day four, follow up with the applications and see what happens. And the Gavin Foundation happened to be one of them, recovery coaching. It's ironic. I did not like the idea of recovery coaching. I thought, I don't know. I thought that it was something to look down upon or something like that. Like, I thought you should just do it organically and, you know, sponsorship through the 12 steps and whatever. Like, I had a different idea. And I often encourage people in recovery to pay attention to the things that make you uncomfortable. And so it's interesting.
I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
It's really interesting that I ended up becoming a recovery coach, and it's just something that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
one of the things about addiction is you get comfortable in your comfortability, and you don't want to leave.
Right.
That, right?
You don't want to. You don't want to. Well, they say that there's two things an addict and an alcoholic doesn't like. That's change and the way things are. Right. So that leaves you in a.
That's everything. And it's so true. It's so true because the addicts, including myself, that I've known or experienced, they hate change and they want to change everything. But yet there's nothing we can do about it. So what do? We suppress and we medicate, self-medicate.
Yeah.
Amen.
And that's pattern for the course.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has some sense of being in, at least in an environment, or putting themselves down, or they don't necessarily have to use drugs or alcohol is what I'm saying. You can abuse food, you can abuse yourself, verbally and mentally, emotionally. I think everybody's been there to a point where it's time to make a change. It's time to do something to better myself and better my life and better my outcome, because it's only you can only go so low before you're 6 feet in the ground, right? And that could be scary. And so one of the things that is great is there are things like counseling, there are things like peer support, and then there's organizations such as the Gavin Foundation. I'd really like to know, Jess, if you can enlighten me a little bit on what is the Gavin Foundation's mission?
So from my understanding is Gavin started, there was a police officer, I believe he was a police officer or a parole
officer
in Boston. And he just kept seeing these people cycle in and out of the jails that had substance abuse issues. So him and his wife decided to take people that left the prison or jail into their own home with their family and showed them how to live. Like, ate dinner with them, had rooms in their home.
And showed them what life could be.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And that's how the whole mission started, so to speak.
Wow.
So he wanted to give more of a chance to these guys, which is it's so crazy to me, because that was the same type of mission I was already involved in, right? Is showing people to how to bridge the gap between being incarcerated and getting back into society. And that's what he saw. He saw these guys coming in and out. And then not only that he noticed that a lot of these people have substance abuse disorders. And so he's like, okay, so how do we provide a platform for them to get better? And that was one of the turning points for me. Like when I was incarcerated in 2019, the thing that changed my life was sitting in a high profile unit with a bunch of other inmates who were all looking at life bids. These guys were in for, hurting people, taking people's lives, multiple lives. And they were all sitting at the table eating with me, but they weren't bad people. Bro, just like we're having a conversation right now, they were talking to me just like I was talking to them. They were just humans. And every one of them was an addict or an alcoholic who did something stupid in a split second, and they're never going to be able to see the streets again.
Wow. And
that made me, because they saw in me that there was some hope. They're like, you're going to get to the streets someday, bro. You might be able to turn this around. And like, to be the only guy at the table that might be able to turn around was like, okay, I need to do something about this.
I have an opportunity to do something. It's not like I'm stuck in my circumstances. I can actually make a change.
It was the greatest gift I ever got, was to look in their eyes and to see those guys. But the reason I brought that up is because that was the entire table that I sat with. They were all addicts and alcoholics. Every single one of them. It's not like one or two or just a couple. It's a large percentage of the people who are incarcerated that are struggling with substance abuse disorder and whatnot. So the guy who started the Gavin Foundation saw that years ago, and he started to put into motion the types of support systems that are available to, sober housing, recovery centers.
It was a halfway house. That was the first.
A halfway house was what started it.
And then it's kind of snowballed from there.
From an old police
men's
station
to women's, programs to detoxes to CSS, where people wait to go to residential treatment, and then finally to recovery coaching.
And it's still growing.
Yeah. Nice. Like, part of what I hated about residential treatment was like discharging people when they broke the rules or they just couldn't stop using, and we would discharge them to the street. That was the worst
Which
part
is
of the
wild
job.
because the part of the reason why they're there is because they can't stop
It breaks
using.
my heart every time John says I'm too empathetic.
Yeah.
But the part I love about recovery coaching is we follow them. Even if they get discharged from whatever program they're in, we're right there with them.
Yeah.
And we'll be with them while they go back to detox, back to CSS, and we'll encourage them to try it again.
Yeah.
And that's the best part of this job.
What is the main focus of the Gavin Foundation? What does the Gavin Foundation provide to the community on a very basic level?
Recovery support.
Recovery support.
Yeah.
Recovery support, resources, peer support, prime examples, like living examples in the community. Most of the people who work at the Gavin Foundation are in recovery themselves with some extended time. So yeah, nothing's more. They say that the power of one alcoholic helping another is without parallel, and I think that that's congruent no matter if you're talking about addicts or alcoholics or whatever. But for whatever reason, we know that when one person has a living example and can walk, talk, breathe sobriety, and function as a normal person in the community, if that means working 9 to 5, paying their taxes, paying their rent, doing the big boy stuff, all the stuff that we don't do when we're active because we don't have time for that because you're too busy taking care of the furnace that you can't put out. It's just constantly burning inside of you. It's like,
and whatever money you do get, you're putting to feed that.
That's it. It's an entirely selfish pursuit. And so ironically, the way we turn that around is with a little selfishness by saying, like, I need to fix, I need to stop, I need to grow up. I need to grow up and get responsible. I need to take suggestions of other people, and that's all we're there for. So I'm no one's any better or greater than it's no comparison about recovery level. There's nothing about that. It's just I've been there. I'm here to listen. I'm here to point into some directions that might help, with resources or, so like a day in the life of a recovery coach. So we go to their sober housing units, halfway houses, their programs. We can meet them where they're at. We pick them up to take them to appointments. We can help them get their IDs, their social security, whatever it is, the social part of living that we neglect, getting a job, all the stuff that we don't do when we're active, we help them do when they're starting to get sober. Because getting sober is a big part of it.
Right.
That's maybe the most important part.
Yeah, but you can't stay sober if you don't have a place to live, if you don't have your vital documents.
Right.
If you can't support yourself, it's all. If you're going to be homeless and you have substance use disorder, you're going to use.
Right.
Most.
And I mean, I think that's one of the biggest problems is a lot of people find themselves either in jail or just kicked out of whatever living situation they were in before, and then you don't even got money to feed your addiction. How are you going to get money to get a home or get anything else that you need in order to secure a job? Because without a home, without a mailing address, right, you can't get a job.
Right.
And so it just becomes like this hopeless pitfall.
That was how it was for me. Yeah.
Why not just ride out feeling my best?
And there were no resources. But here's the problem with our society. You mentioned society being a problem, right? If you are an addict and you go to Home Depot and you steal a circular saw and they catch you and you get arrested, the moment those cuffs hit your wrist, you're getting $30,000 to $60,000 a year.
Wow.
Funding, right? When you're in custody, the taxpayers are paying for you. So you're getting immediate services.
Do you know what $30,000 or $60,000 will do for me in operating manager media? I'm just saying, it's better than supporting me in jail, right? Like, it's wild.
It's just sad that that's the type of immediate funding that's given to people who need these resources. So the Gavin Foundation kind of is an outlet for those types of resources to gain access to them, because you'll get those immediate services right away. But if an addict is looking for a detox and you can't find a bed, right, and they say, "Well, come back next week."
By next week, they're over it.
Do you know how many circular saws you can steal from Home Depot in a week?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that guy's going to go on a bender, and his likelihood of getting arrested and incarcerated is going to accelerate through the roof.
Well, and his likelihood of returning
or even
is not going to happen.
Or dying.
Yeah.
Which is a sad reality in way too many people's lives. But the point is that the services are kind of like displaced. like, or you're kind of set aside. It's like, wait a minute, that's why we're addict and alcoholic in the first place, because we remember you were saying earlier, leave me alone. I just want to drink or drug in peace. And ironically, that's exactly what we wind up getting. In the end, in the final analysis, you wind up being completely isolated. People don't want anything to do with you. You're unhoused because you're a liability to be around. And it's not because the people who love you don't love you. It's just because they can't be around you without you stealing, lying, manipulating, cheating, breaking things. It's just you're a tornado. And so these resources and stuff, the things that are available now, the recovery court that the Justice Department does now in Worcester, the Sheriff's Department has all kinds of options available as far as like, substance abuse treatment in jail, and then step down programming and sober houses. And it's because of people like the man who started the Gavin Foundation. It's because people see that there's a reoccurring issue that we need to address. And if we don't address it at the root, then it doesn't heal. And I think we're just living embodiment of that.
Right. We're an agency of resources. Like, we refer to other agencies. We do a lot of referrals to Mass Ability. It used to be Mass Rehab to get them ready for vocational services, education. That's something I push like right away with people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if they don't have, again, something to do and something to feel proud about, then their likelihood of relapsing is astronomical. It's almost guaranteed.
Right.
If they're just going to go about their day to day with just aimlessly, then they're going to relapse.
Absolutely. I mean, I really believe that humanizing individuals, and by humanizing, I mean like basic needs being met, roof over their head, an address to be able to apply for a job at, food in their stomach so that they are able to function each day without the distraction of your belly rumbling and things like that. Those go such a long way. Are there supportive services that the Gavin Foundation assists with? As far as like, say I'm just fresh out of jail, I don't know where to go. Yeah, sure, you could put me in a halfway house, but that's still, what do I do from there? I don't know. I'm freaking out. I don't know where I'm going to go after that. So why do I even care? Should I just go back to using? You know what I mean?
So in Boston, they have the Divine Recovery Center. It's a drop-in that anyone can walk into, regardless if they're using still, just interested in maybe stopping their substance abuse. And there's recovery coaches on site. They can get hooked up immediately. So they kind of get like entrenched in the whole organization, so to speak.
They have community things that they do all the time.
Right. In Worcester, we're more of a satellite office. Our office is at 101 Pleasant Street. We're growing.
Yeah.
We're hiring more coaches in our office, and we hope to be a powerhouse soon.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say, listen, John, the whole reason for today's happening was because I saw you actively performing outreach. We just ran into each other on the street, and I mean, I would imagine that's Gavin Foundation's main approach at the moment. Where, as you said, you just have a small satellite office, but reaching people where they are. How important is that? Connections,
social human connection is the antidote to addiction, and like it's so wild. But yeah, so that's what we're doing. We're connecting the dots. We're walking up to people and being a living representation of what it is to stay sober. We go to meetings in the community. We bring people to resources in the community. We wear the shirts that have the logo on it. People know. And there's another whole department that access to recovery. That's another whole branch of the Gavin Foundation that can provide resources for people at entry level, as long as they have a referral from their providers that we collaborate with, and they get access to funding and stuff that can help them with the basic necessities, like your clothing, your hygiene products. We can help with getting people connected with bills, getting into a sober house. We can help with payments on that. Nobody's giving anybody cash or anything like that, but you do get like.
But some things are even more valuable than cash. I mean, I would imagine having the support just to get my basic needs met, so that I can get a fresh second start. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like you were saying earlier. How do you get a job if you don't have any clothes? How do you
feel good about yourself if you don't have hygiene products?
How do you look for a job if you're hungry?
Yeah.
Your basic human instinct is going to find food first.
Right.
Like it's not interested in looking for a job. So if you don't have food, if you don't have housing, if you don't have shelter, if you don't have genuine just support, someone who says, "Hey, you look better than you did yesterday. This is day 2 for you. Congratulations, bro," because that's a miracle. And when you have people encourage you like that, but to watch people grow, I don't know about. I already know. I can speak for Jess too. Watching people grow is the most rewarding thing about doing this type of work. And you don't even have to be. I mean, you know that. Anybody who's community oriented knows watching other people get their lives together is like the most rewarding side of it.
There's a lot of people on my caseload that are like trying to get their KDACs to become certified drug and alcohol counselors using Mass Ability, which is a state agency that pays for their schooling, gives them a laptop. You know, when I met most of them while they were in residential treatment, and you know, they were like, I want to work in recovery like you. And so we figured out a way. We did a referral to Mass Ability, and they're on their way. Most of them are taking the classes right now, or some are even working in recovery.
That just goes to show how profound what you guys do is, because you're providing a service to individuals very much in need, that when they come around or come to or get that sense of clarity, it sounds to me they're so appreciative, they want to pay it forward.
Right. No, absolutely.
It's the only way to turn your record into a resume.
Yeah.
Preach,
no, you're
brother.
right. I know. I never thought I'd get hired anywhere. I really didn't. I was like.
And now how do you feel? Do you feel like, you know, if there was something that came up, another opportunity that you wanted to pursue, Gavin Foundation, this is all hypothetical. She's not trying to leave you. But let's just say, hypothetically, do you feel like you qualify more than you did before? Like,
absolutely.
do you feel like,
I mean, I love Gavin. I
can
don't
actually
see myself going anywhere.
Right.
Like, I'm really, really happy. I have no complaints. My last job in recovery, you know, I knew I loved working in recovery, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that means everything. I was talking to my friend actually about having a job. There's a difference between having a job that you got to go to every day just for the paycheck and having a job that truly makes you happy.
Right.
The one that makes you happy is so much more rewarding. You know, you just, even if the pay isn't as good, just having that, your soul happy.
Yeah, and it's great. Like, John's great to work with. Like, it's great and then refreshing to work with people that care to the same caliber that I do.
Right.
You know, I've worked in places where people were kind of just there sometimes for the paycheck, but it's nice working with people that actually care.
You mentioned Mass Ability earlier, and they're the ones who paid for my recovery coach classes. Like, it's, for those of you who are interested, like, it's not expensive, even if you pay out of pocket to take. I think it's 2 weeks.
That's the initial class.
The initial classes are 2 weeks. There's a couple of follow-up classes, but it's not expensive to get your recovery coach certificate and to qualify for these positions. And it's like, give it a shot, you know? Like, and if you...
And to be clear, you don't have to be in recovery yourself, right?
You can be an ally.
Be an ally, sure.
That means you're not actually in recovery yourself. Yeah. We obviously prefer lived experience. I would
absolutely.
Yeah.
Lived experience is always key, but
drug addiction, it's a hard thing to understand unless you've lived through it. You know, people think it's, you know, just weak moral character.
There's the whole why would you do that mentality.
Nobody wants to live the life of a drug addict. Stick needles in their arms.
And more than a mental disease, I think, you know, it's self-medicating from childhood trauma, which
100%.
is so misunderstood and not even really talked about.
That's what it is.
We don't do what we have to do to
100%.
address childhood trauma. We kind of just like brush it under the rug and, oh, you're an adult now. You know the rules.
It's the survival mechanism.
Go do your thing.
Yeah. Like, those behaviors start when you're a child before you ever pick up a substance. Those behaviors are there. And typically, like, from my experience, it's like 99.9% is childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is why people begin using drugs.
When I start working with people, one of the first things I do is congratulate them for finding a way to survive.
Yeah.
Like your alcoholic addiction or addiction to drugs is literally the thing that you clung to like a life raft that allowed you to get through the turbulent waters that was your chaotic life at the time. Thank God you had that life raft. Unfortunately, it's a double-sided sword. It's also trying to kill you. Yeah. You know, but you had that to cling to that got you to the place that you're at today. So like, thank God that you had that way to navigate the trauma and stuff. It's like, okay, so now that we're sober, we're going to focus on doing that one day at a time, the little incremental steps. The way that I approach getting this job is something I learned in recovery. I was terrified by the idea of looking for a job and starting over. All I did was open the internet one day, type in Indeed.com. That's step one.
That's what I did too.
Step two, make an Indeed profile. That was the next day. Step three, look for jobs that I'm interested in. Note them. Step four, go back to the jobs I was interested in, see if they're still applying, fill out the application. Step five, follow through with the application. It's like I broke it down into steps because I can't jump from this to that. Like,
and it wasn't so overwhelming.
No, that's what I mean, right? Yeah. So and so that basic principle is something that I bring to everybody in recovery, and I try to use that example. Like that's just one example of how we get from here to there. Yeah. You know, so.
I love that. Don't pay attention to him. He's giving me the finger, not you. We're good. I'm supposed to be paying attention. And with that being said, the finger means we just are out of time. Aww. Time flies when you're having fun. I mean, it's such a great conversation. Thank you both for being so open and vulnerable. Before and inspiring as well. Before we go, I do want to give you one last opportunity to just let us know, let the community know why we should be paying more attention to Gavin Foundation. Maybe someone who knows someone who's afflicted by addiction, maybe someone who's currently going through it. Why should they reach out?
So we're different than some of the other recovery coaching agencies in Worcester. We have a lot more integrity. I'm not talking trash. We really do. I've had clients that have been, they've tried to receive services from the other agencies and they would barely see the people, or it would be like a random text or a phone call.
They end up just being a number.
We have mandatory like in-person text, phone call, like contact numbers throughout the week. We have to do like 3, an in-person, a text, and a phone call. Yeah. So we remain like in our people's lives. Mm-hmm. Like we're there.
The turnaround is quicker. If you're getting a referral, you're likely to hear back from a recovery coach to book an appointment with you quicker than you will some of the other places that are local. Not knocking any of these other establishments. They're all doing the ends. It's the ends of the same means, right? We're all looking to help people, but the Gavin Foundation definitely has a better, quicker turnaround from what I've noticed and from what I've heard from people that are doing it. But you do need referrals for the ATR side of it, and
for recovery coaching. If you ever see John or I on the street, just walk up. We can do self referrals.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be tagging you guys in the information or the description above. At least John, and then if you want, you can. Okay. I don't know if I have your information quite yet, but we'll work all that out. And how can people get in touch with you directly or get in touch with the Gavin Foundation? Where can we find them?
101 Pleasant Street, 2nd floor, Suite 202. We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
And I did follow the Gavin Foundation. Yes, I did follow the Gavin Foundation on Facebook. So I know that the Gavin Foundation is available on Facebook. Is it on Instagram as well?
That's a good question. I don't know.
That's right. We can go check. It's all right. I didn't know if you guys knew. But we can follow for all of those who are watching on Facebook. Please go do that. One of the most important things is community support for organizations like the Gavin Foundation to continue to grow. So just a simple follow. It can go a long way.
Yeah. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you being here. Listen, I'm always so happy to have you. Please come back. Of course, let's talk more about our most vulnerable of our community out there and how we can keep getting all of us uplifted and on a path to a success as a community. Yeah. And Jess, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. Absolutely. Thank you guys. And for now, this has been another episode of InnerViews with your boy Manny and
John Wayne
and Jess.
Manny J Media, community delivered. We'll see you real soon. Yeah. Peace.